Since you guys really enjoyed the last video I made grading you guys' custom curse techniques, which by the way is now my most viewed video on my channel, currently at the time of recording this video is at 23k views, which is the most viewed video on my channel, which may not sound like a lot to some YouTubers, but it's a lot to me. So I just want to say I really appreciate you guys for that. And if you haven't already joined the Discord server to partake in these custom curse techniques, you should join up, link in the description of this video. We're now doing this thing with the custom curse techniques where we write a whole script about two characters fighting with the two custom curse techniques. And it's probably the most fun I've ever had on the Discord server. And if anybody knows how to animate, you should definitely come over to the Discord server. We got some fun fights that'll definitely look cool animated. But let me stop wasting time and get straight into the ranking. So I have 21 curse techniques to get through in this video. I'm going to give a summary on these custom curse techniques, so if you guys want the full breakdown on how the technique works, you're going to have to join the Discord server and find them. And for my number 21st spot, it's going to go to a curse technique called Neko to Musin. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but we're going to roll with it. But this curse technique allows the user to summon a cartoonish cat and mouse that interact chaotically. The cat relentlessly pursues the mouse unless guided by cheese trails. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Good, let's keep going. Other attacks this technique has is Mouse Hole, where it creates portals for attacks or movements across space. It has a technique known as Tune Mode, where it temporarily depletes the target's cursed energy while enhancing the user's strength. And it has Scary Doggo, where it summons a protective demon dog, and its strength depends on the cursed energy invested. For the domain expansion, it's called Looney Chase. It transforms the arena into a cartoonish environment where participants are assigned roles as cats or mice with unique abilities based on their role assignment. And I'm going to grade this one a grade 2 sorcerer. If I was to see this technique fight, it would be a very entertaining fight to see. But the reason I rank this at the last place is because with this technique relying on the summoning of a cat and a mouse duo, it offers limited combat utility. The supporting attacks are both situational and lack the raw power needed for high level combat, and the domain expansion is more disorienting than damaging. But I do enjoy the curse technique, it's pretty creative. But moving on to my number 20 spot, I have a technique called Devour. This curse technique basically allows the consumption of non-cursed items to gain their properties temporarily. And for its domain expansion called Beelzebub Feast, summons forth those consumed items as Shikigami allies with reverse curse technique. And I'm going to grade this one a grade 2 sorcerer as well. While this technique allows for versatile abilities by consuming non-cursed items, its limitations on what can be devoured and the numbers of slots available restrict its overall effectiveness. While the domain expansion does provide additional support to this curse technique, it doesn't allow this technique to overcome these limitations, which is why I put it so low on this list. Now for my number 19 spot, I have a technique called Nap Time. Now this technique allows the user to summon a pillow and a blanket with unique effects. The pillow drains curse energy and induces drowsiness on contact, and the blanket summons Shikigami that induces sleep upon contact. The Shikigami types include hallucination inducing, REM, movement halting parasomnia, and adaptive Charcot. And for its domain expansion, called Coffin of Eternal Bliss, the user sleeps while the Shikigami attack intruders. User recovers energy and health while asleep, and the Shikigami grow weaker or faster based on the proximity to the user. And I'm going to grade this a grade 1 sorcerer. This technique effectively induces sleep and drains cursed energy, making it potent for incapacitation. However, its passive nature limits its offensive capabilities, and the domain expansion focuses more on defense. But moving on to my number 18 spot on this list, I have a technique called Combo. Now this technique consists of 4 main abilities, with one being Combo technique. With each hit, it doubles in strength, resetting if no hit lands within 5 seconds. The multiplier effect makes each successive attack exponentially stronger. It has the reversal of that technique, Dividing Dealt, where it halves the opponent's curse energy output for 5 seconds per hit. This effect can be refreshed with continuous hits. It has Combo Breaker, its maximum technique, a powerful attack that has a base power of 2 to the power of n, where n is the number of hits landed, and it has a cooldown based on the hits landed and resets the combo counter upon use. And lastly, it has Flash Breaker, where it combines Combo Breaker with Black Flash for immense power, retaining Combo Breaker's drawbacks. For its domain expansion, Fighter's Ring, it nullifies curse techniques within a cage-like domain, but allows curse energy use. If an opponent's domain overpowers it, the domain expansion can be cancelled. And I'm going to grade this one also a grade 1 sorcerer. Now this technique is personally one of my favorites. It kind of reminds me of Dariere's commandment, where her punches get heavier the more she hits. Also did a fight scene between me and this curse technique, and it was really lit. You guys should definitely join up and read through it. And again, if any animators want to drop in, you should definitely animate that one first. But yeah, I put this one here because the escalating power of successive hits can be devastating, but the short time limit between hits poses a significant drawback, and maintaining a combo can be challenging against skilled opponents. But moving on to my number 17th spot on this list, I have a technique called Ink-Bound Artistry. This technique converts cursed energy into paint to create objects and beings that act accordingly to commands. Its maximum technique, Scribble Scrabble, allows for rapid creation of solid constructs like weapons or barriers through scribbling in midair during combat. And its domain expansion, Blank Canvas, turns the battlefield into a white space where enemies degrade into stick figures over time, weakening them against ink-based attacks while allowing dynamic creation within the domain. So kind of like Sai from Naruto. I'm gonna grade this one a semi-grade 1. The ability to create and control objects through painting offers great versatility. However, its effectiveness is heavily dependent on the user's creativity and skill. But the domain expansion does provide a unique battlefield advantage but lacks immediate impact. For my number 16th spot on this list, I have a technique called the Planets. This technique allows the user to switch between 7 planetary stances. With Mars greatly enhancing strength and durability, Venus heals others using reverse curse technique, Mercury significantly increasing speed, Jupiter providing continuous curse energy regeneration, Saturn drains curse energy through physical contact, Uranus fires concentrated curse energy blasts, and Neptune creates illusions and clones for deception. And for its domain expansion, called Galaxy's Grace, combines all stances into an additional stance called Soul, which blinds opponents with radiation and emits extreme heat. And I'm going to grade this technique a semi-grade 1 sorcerer as well. With this technique offering 7 different stances with unique ability, it provides excellent versatility. However, the cooldown period between uses limits its continuous effectiveness in prolonged battles, which is why I can't rank it above the rest of them on this list. But this technique does have a really good concept to it. But moving on to my number 15th spot on this list, I have a technique called 10 Voodoo Commandments. This technique allows the user to use a voodoo doll to manipulate enemies by obtaining their DNA. This voodoo doll can steal curse energy from enemies by harnessing DNA-infused items, heal oneself by transforming the doll into oneself using personal DNA, stun enemies temporarily with essence control via DNA acquisition, and control enemies temporarily by swapping souls into the doll using shaped hearts in its form. And I'm going to grade this one a grade 1 sorcerer. The voodoo doll based abilities offers a range of powerful effects, including curse energy stealing and enemy control. However, the need for the enemy's DNA is a significant limiting factor in fast-paced combat scenarios. But it could be viable in some situations, but I can't rank it any higher than this. So moving on to my number 14th spot on this list, I have a technique called Relentless Percussion. This technique allows the user to create sonic booms to rupture eardrums and stun opponents. They can also launch sound wave projectiles to cause ground vibrations similar to a 6.0 earthquake within a 45-foot radius, with an eternal beat gains a power boost. For its domain expansion, called Beating Echo, a metallic cylindrical room where the user moves at the speed of sound, amplifying sound-based attacks 5-fold. Sound attacks bounce unpredictably off walls, enhancing their lethality. And I'm going to grade this one a grade 1 sorcerer as well. Sound-based attacks provide a good range of offensive and defensive options. The ability to create sonic booms that manipulate vibrations is versatile, but may not be as impactful as more direct damage dealing techniques. But I really like the name of this technique though. But moving on to my number 13th spot on this list, I have a technique called Third Time's the Charm. This technique increases attack power with each successive attempt, culminating in the inevitable third strike, hence the name Third Time's the Charm. For its domain expansion, called Fate's Triumvirate, it ensures opponents' first 2 attempts fail while enhancing the user's third strike. And I'm going to rank this one a grade 1 sorcerer as well. Now, escalating power with each attempt can lead to devastating third strikes. However, the predictable pattern can be exploited by observant opponents. So while this technique can be viable in most situations, it can also be easily countered by most sorcerers. Moving on to my number 12th spot on this list, I have a technique called Reflection. This technique allows the user to use mirrors to summon reflections as expendable objects or catchers. Reflections can trap opponents or be used offensively and defensively. Its maximum puppetry allows for full control over a chosen reflection, potentially for 1 year, but deletes it if the mirror is destroyed. And for its domain expansion, called Call of the Images, it uses every reflection you've ever absorbed and uses them to their max potential. And I'm going to grade this one a special grade sorcerer. Now, the ability to summon and manipulate reflections provide great versatility in both offense and defense scenarios. Various uses like eating depths and puppetry offer strategic depth but require significant curse energy to maintain. So in a prolonged battle where the user is comparable to the strength of the user of this technique, it could be a difficult fight for them to win. But moving on to my number 11 spot on this list, I have a technique called Marionette Manipulation. This technique allows the user to control cursed dolls infused with curse energy as extensions of their will. The dolls have unique abilities like speed or explosive power based on the design. They use invisible strings to control or ensnaring opponents, and the strings can blind targets. Dolls can possess objects or corpses temporarily for distraction or traps through possession abilities. And for its domain expansion, Living Dollhouse, it creates an eerie dollhouse filled with hostile dolls obeying the user's will within an indestructible maze-like environment. Rooms have varying environmental effects like coldness or darkness, enhancing disorientation among opponents trapped inside until released or defeated. And I'm going to grade this one a special grade sorcerer. While control over cursed dolls offer high versatility in combat, the ability to imbue dolls with different abilities makes this technique unpredictable and effective, but not more effective than the other ones on this list. So moving on to my number 10 spot on this list, I have a technique called Puzzle of Spirit that holds chaos in order. Now this technique allows the user to wield a pyramid necklace and a deck of cards to summon cursed spirits. Breaking game rules triggers severe punishment like illusions or mind crushes. And for its domain expansion, called When the Pyramids Were Still Young, it transforms the area into an ancient Egyptian landscape where powerful spirits are summoned by sacrificing curses. And I'm going to grade this one a special grade sorcerer. Complex game-based mechanics with powerful summoning abilities provide significant strategic depth, and the unknown rules add an element of unpredictability to this curse technique, making this curse technique a real powerhouse in the right hands. But moving on to my number 9 spot on this list, I have a technique called Gluttony. This technique allows the user to manipulate dark flames fueled by cursed energy, transferring consumed energy into the user. And for its domain expansion, called True Form of Gluttony, it strips all cursed energy from opponents, enhancing the user's abilities. And I'm going to grade this one a special grade sorcerer as well. Manipulating dark flames that consume cursed energy is a powerful ability, especially against opponents with large reserves. And with the domain expansion immediately draining all cursed energy, it makes any sorcerer who relies heavily on their curse technique easily dispatched. But moving on to my number 8 spot on this list, I have a technique called Forces of Nature. This technique offers the user a variety of nature-based attacks, with some being Flower's Immense Pressure, where it manipulates gravity using flowers. Relentless Log pursues the target until it hits or it's destroyed. And Equal Stone Wall, where it negates attacks with a real outward force. And for its domain expansion, called The Laws of Nature, it allows the user to affect the forces of nature onto the target within a field as long as they are touching the grass. And I'm going to grade this one a special grade sorcerer as well. Diverse nature-based abilities, and they allow for effective manipulation of gravity and other forces on top of that. This technique provides strong countering potential against opponents. So I can definitely see this technique being a powerhouse in the right hands. But moving on to my number 7 spot on this list, I have a technique called Karmic Reversal. This technique allows the user to absorb damage to unleash it later as a powerful attack or convert it into buffs like increased defense or energy reserves. Stored damage can be released selectively against multiple opponents. The technique's reversal allows storing buffs for later use, up to 4 at a time. Buffs diminish after use or 2 weeks of storage. And for its domain expansion called Chronological Retribution, it nullifies all cursed energy and starts a timer of 45 seconds. If they can fight their opponent off for the duration of the match, the sure hit effect activates. And the sure hit is that they can throw one punch with the power of all the damage they have taken through the entire fight. And it is amplified by all the bad things the opponent has done throughout their entire life. And I'm going to grade this one a special grade sorcerer. This technique kind of reminds me of Fat Gum in My Hero Academia. Absorbing damage to unleash powerful counterattacks makes this technique exceptionally potent in prolonged battles. So pretty much the only way to defeat a technique like this is to dispatch of it quick, because if not, you're most likely going to lose that fight. But moving on to my number 6 spot on this list, I have a technique called Halt. This technique allows the user to freeze anything touched by transferring cursed energy, stopping atoms in their place. The duration depends on the contact time and the target strength. The maximum technique of this ability is called ATD, or Area Time Denial, where it freezes everything in a large area for a short period, causing fatigue. And for its domain expansion, Temporal Crash, it allows the user to surge curse energy infinitely, disrupting other techniques and stacking freezing effects. And I gotta rank this from the special grade sorcerer as well. The power to freeze targets in place offers immense tactical advantage and strategic control over the battlefield. It puts anybody who uses this technique at like a Mahito level of advantage, because if pretty much the user of this technique touches you, that could be game over depending on the user's strength. But moving on to my number 5th spot on this list, I have a technique called Temporal Lockdown. This technique allows the user to freeze a target in time indefinitely without external influence. The user remains conscious if self-targeted, allowing strategic planning while frozen. And for its domain expansion, Instance of Infinity, a void-like domain where time is frozen for all except the user, costs 6 months of the user's lifespan per minute active, and it prevents the use for 1 month after activation. Now I gotta grant this one a special grade sorcerer as well. Freezing targets in time provides unparalleled control over the battlefield. However, it comes at a high personal cost to the user, which is why the only reason I allowed this technique to be here in the first place. Because normally I would say this technique is too overpowered to be a curse technique at all, but this technique does have some massive drawbacks to it. Moving on to my number 4th spot on this list, I have a technique called Phantom Replication. This technique allows the user several cloning abilities, consisting of techniques such as Mirror Image, create a perfect clone confusing enemies, Doppelganger Assault, summons a physical enhanced clone for melee combat, Shadow Spectre, a stealthy intangible clone for reconnaissance, Elemental Echo, clones imbued with elemental energy for offensive and defensive purposes, Cloned Reflection, a defensive clone that reflects or absorbs curse energy attacks, Twin Soul Technique, a synchronized clone sharing a psychic link with the user, and Self-Destructing Clone, explodes upon contact or after a set time. And for the domain expansion, Hall of Infinite Reflections, an endless mirror labyrinth where countless clones attack from all angles, disorienting enemies. And I gotta grade this one a special grade sorcerer as well. I think it's pretty self-explanatory why I ranked this one this high. Creating versatile clones confusing enemies and providing overwhelming numbers in combat, especially with the domain expansion. This technique basically makes the user twice from My Hero Academia with the Sad Man's Parade. But moving on to my number 3 spot on this list, I have a technique called Seasonal Requiem. This technique allows the user to swap between several different seasonal masks that give different effects. For spring, it heals and restores energy. For summer, it enhances fire attacks and physical abilities. For autumn, it weakens the opponent's defense over time. And winter, it freezes the target on contact. For the domain expansion, called Cycle of Seasons, it cycles through the seasons, each with unique abilities like healing, fire enhancement, decay acceleration, and freezing. And I gotta grade this one a special grade sorcerer as well. Cycling power boosts across seasons, culminating in a devastating final attack that can significantly alter the course of a battle, makes this technique a real powerhouse in the right hands. I highly suggest you go to my Discord server and checking this technique out. This technique is a real powerhouse, which is why it's rated so high on this list. But moving on to my number 2 spot on this list, I have a technique called Grace of Amaterasu. Now this technique is very long, so I'm going to simplify this heavy, and if you want the full context of this, you're going to have to go to my Discord server and read it yourself. This technique has an inherited trait to it, called Kagetsuchi's Vision, allowing the user to see the world through thermal vision. It has a technique called Infernalization. By igniting their soul, the user transforms, gaining dragon-like scales and horns. This transformation significantly boosts physical strength and defense, making them immune to fire-based attacks. It has environmental flame control. The user can manipulate any existing flame with precision, but cannot create new flames. It has a technique called Area of Invincibility / Frozen Rebound, a defense domain that absorbs kinetic energy. The stored energy can be released explosively or converted into ice by cooling the thermal energy. It has Generation of the Great Flame. The user can generate and control flames on their body, altering their form and temperature. However, they lose the ability to control pre-existing flames. It has a series of extension techniques, but I'm not going to go through all of those. You're going to have to go read it on my Discord server. But for the domain expansion, called Birth of the Great Cataclysm, the user splits into 2 godlike halves, representing hope and despair. They can create or destroy life and manipulate flames at their peak potential. Now I'm gonna have to grade this one a special grade sorcerer for obvious reasons, but I'm gonna give a caveat to this technique. I don't like the lack of drawbacks to this curse technique. While I do appreciate the Fire Force references that this curse technique is based on, pretty much being able to become God without barely any drawbacks is kind of lame in terms of JJK standards, but I still decided to put it on this list because I thought it was an interesting iteration of the Fire Force abilities. But moving on to my number one spot on this list, I have a technique called Destruction. Now this technique allows the user to convert their cursed energy into destructive energy and control said destructive energy. With having a technique called Shroud, a protective layer that erodes incoming attacks, Obliteration, launches destructive energy balls, Annihilation, slashes effective against cursed targets, and Converge, forces marked targets to collide violently. For its maximum technique, it has Ultimate Ruin, concentrates energy to erase everything within a radius. Collide, merges multiple targets into one point with immense force. And for the domain expansion, Abyss of Destruction, a dark domain where destructive energy corrodes everything over time. And I'm gonna grade this one a special grade sorcerer as well. Now this technique stands at the pinnacle due to its overwhelming ability to obliterate matter and energy at a fundamental level. Now you may think this curse technique may be a little bit too overpowered, but I don't really think so. I think this technique sounds busted, but really just in the right hands it just could be a really good technique. Like imagine Bakugo running around the JJK verse. That's basically what this technique is. But yeah, that's all the 21 techniques I got. And I didn't sneak my personal curse technique in here for the number one spot again. But I'm still the number one in the verse we're making. Speaking of the number one spot, we're kind of doing this thing where everyone's trying to fight for my number one spot by creating scripts for fight scenes, but I still seem to come out on top every time. So if you guys want to throw your hat in the ring, my link to my Discord server down in the description below. And again, any animators that want to join in and show off their skills, you're always welcome, and it will be really appreciated. But that's all I got for this video. So if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more, then leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And join the Discord server, link in the description. Come on, we get lit over there. But yeah, I'll see you guys the next time I pop up on your homepage. And with that being said, yeah.
I'm in the party, so I'm on the fall. I don't know what the time goes. Like in the face, everybody fakes lace with the fake. Had it all in this one day. I don't really wanna change, I don't tell the truth. I don't really see it for if I don't trust you. I know how you wanna feel, I bet you wanna hear, I bet you wanna see if anything, you're real.